Good morning, ladies and gentlemen who are here, and good morning, evening, and afternoon to those of you who are joining us online. Thank you very much for doing that. I know some of you it's very, very early in the morning or very, very late in the evening. Before our chair starts the meeting, just a few housekeeping things. First of all, just to make sure you're in the right meeting. This is the IGF 2026 first open consultation day. Now, this day is dedicated to hear views from the community. So the non-MAG members have precedence. And then if there's time, then we can hear from MAG members. But MAG members, your day is tomorrow and the day after. Today, we're trying to focus on community views, so to speak. If you want to request the floor, I think the best thing to do is that everybody, if you can, log on to Zoom, and then you can raise your hand. That way, Zoom automatically keeps the order, and we don't have any confusion who raised their hands first. But also, you can put your flag up like this, and then wait for either the chair or the co-chair to call your name. And then you just say your name again for the record. And also just give your stakeholder group just for a brief introduction, because again, if you're not a MAG member, we don't know, we may not know whom you are. The website has the agenda, and it also has links to the reference documents that we'll be referring to today. So please take a look at the website. And I think that's all. Just let me check with my team to see if I've forgotten anything. No, okay. So I will now give the floor to our co-chair is on his way, but we just decided to start because everybody's here, and when he comes, he can join in the meeting. So I would like to give the floor to Ms. Jennifer Chung, Vice President for Policy, a .Asia organization, and she is our chair. And let's welcome her. Thank you. Yes. I mean, I can if you want. So our co-chair has arrived, Ambassador Philip Tigo. He is the Special Envoy on Technology for the Republic of Kenya, and he's well-versed in all the subjects. He's also quite busy. I don't know will you be able to be with us for the whole period? In and out? Yes. As you know, he's got a huge portfolio, so he'll try and be with us as much as he can, but he also has other duties. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Chengetai, for the housekeeping remarks and welcoming myself and also my co-chair, Ambassador Tigo. My name is Jennifer Chung. I am the chair for the MAG for this year. I'm very happy to start this open consultation day. As Chengetai mentioned, the priority is to listen to the inputs from the community. And of course, MAG members, of course, are also allowed to speak too, but listening mode is the main, I guess, name of the game for today for the MAG. It is wonderful to be here in Nairobi, Kenya. It is a beautiful city, and it's wonderful to see so many of you joining us online. I know we have, I think, roughly half of the MAG here and half of the MAG online, and of course we have more community members joining us. So with this, I think I'm supposed to take a look at our agenda to see if we can adopt today's agenda. The first part would be, of course, the opening statements. Secondly, we will have on the second agenda item, the stock taking and considerations for IGF 2026. We'll have a break. And then the third item, we will have inputs on the IGF 2026 program, including in the context of WSIS Plus 20, the GDC, the Global Dialogue on AI Governance, and other major digital governance processes. We'll be hearing from a range of different IGF partner organizations and relevant UN entities on opportunities for alignment here. Then we will have a lunch break, and then after that, we'll come to agenda item 4, which is the IGF 2026 overarching theme. We will be hearing from our host country, and we will also be having this open discussion on this particular topic. We'll have a break after that. And then agenda item 5, which is very exciting, is the strategic priorities for IGF 2026. And I think this is going to be looking at some of the relevant expert group meeting recommendations, as well as other things that will keep us aligned and, our strategic focus, especially for this IGF cycle. And then we'll end the day with the objectives and a summing up and a closing. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or additions to our agenda for today? For those MAG members still looking for the Zoom link, perhaps the Secretariat will be able to circulate it. I don't see any hands in the room, and I don't see any online, so I will consider the agenda adopted for today. Thank you very much. Okay, and now I pass the mic over to our host country co-chair for a few words of welcome. Ambassador Tigo, please.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. And of course, just all protocols of that, Chengetai and his team, members of the Global MAG, everybody who's traveling, good morning. Good morning. Really? First of all, is to welcome, for those who've traveled into Nairobi. I think it's a great honor for Kenya to host this hybrid meeting. I bring greetings from my colleagues, the Principal Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Dr. Korir Sing'oei, and also the Principal Secretary for State Department of Broadcast and Telecoms. He should be joining online. I think he's somewhere in Singapore, so maybe I hope that Zoom link has gone. I think for us is to recognize the important work that has been done, of course, by the Secretariat in the last couple of weeks. I still don't know how you did the sprint every week, but also I think my colleague, Ambassador Eki Chela, but also the Ambassador to Albania in the UN for the excellent co-facilitation of WSIS Plus 20 that created the IGF or kind of reinvigorated the IGF in the current format as a permanent forum, but I think also reaffirming the multi-stakeholder model at this very difficult moment in global cooperation. I think this gives us responsibility, and that's the message that I bring from my president, but also from my colleagues, is that I think we are preparing IGF under this renewed mandate, I think, which calls for a spark of imagination, but also a clear understanding of the challenges we have, the fragmented world that we live in, and the new framework within which this forum operates. I think the IGF in Athens was convened at a very different time when the internet was shaping how communications, markets, knowledge, and politics. But I think 20 years later, the terrain has really shifted, where the internet is now part of basic architecture of our lives. It mediates commerce, finance, digital systems. It creates jobs, but also denies opportunity, but also has been very much to the extent of our power is organized. And I've had Jen's kind of brief around the new institutions, whether it's a Global Digital Compact that ushered in the scientific panel, but also the dialogue mechanism. And that is why I feel power will be contested. Of course, we live in an era of generative artificial intelligence that I think is mediating how internet is accessed, but also how internet proliferates data and communication. We know these capabilities are concentrated amongst a few countries and a few companies, but also that's where I think the defining question of governance of our time is that the digital divide has evolved into beyond connectivity to an opportunity divide. And I think young people, and I see many of them in this room, who do not have connectivity, are locked out of education and work. Older people are displaced from work and opportunity. So I think the challenge, as we've seen, is very much profound. I think we speak from experience. We are undeniably a digital hub. We're the number one user of ChatGPT. I say that funny, but it's not funny because we use it for the wrong reasons, emotional advice and companionship. But also we're the number one users of social media, 4 hours and 13 minutes a day, which reflects the challenge we have. Yes, of our young people being digital natives, but also our young people being exposed to deepfakes, misinformation, disinformation, and challenges of information integrity. We're also at the front line of cybersecurity and cyber attacks, where our systems have been disrupted previously. We're also, of course, victims to submarine cable cuts. And of course, we've seen internet shutdowns across our regions when there's public dissent or democratic transitions. And I think for me, that's the terrain we live in right now. But I think there's still hope, especially in this room where we've seen movements of open source, young people coming together, creating applications and opportunities for people to connect differently, but also opportunity to be spread in a way that is inclusive. And here is why I say, yes, governments have responsibility, and I'm glad that Parliament and Judiciary are going to be part of this iteration of IGF in Nairobi. And so I think the question I think before us is not about whether the technology or internet is changing or shifting, is the opportunity we have right now to shape this new shift. And that is where Kenya speaks about this potential emergence of technology middle powers, where we have an opportunity around capital markets, young people, talent, but also this new energy around multi-stakeholder collaboration. And so I think for us, 3 questions that my colleagues have asked me to share with you is, one, is that we see ourselves at this space where, yes, especially the Global South must not be treated only as a market or a user of technology or a risk category, but basically as a potential space for innovation, but to reinvigorate multilateralism. And so 3 things. One is, how do countries build capacity and capability to shape their own digital future through a multi-stakeholder model? Secondly is, how do we strengthen trust in institutions and governance in the era of technology? Third is, how do we preserve an open, interoperable, secure, and neutral internet in an age of fragmentation, concentration, and geopolitical competition? Those are 3 questions. I'll share them later. But with that, welcome to Nairobi. You have an enviable task to respond to these big questions that everybody's trying to respond to. Thank you very much, Jennifer.
Thank you very much. And now we come to Dennis Cesar for the welcome by UNDESA.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, colleagues, members of the MAC. My name is Deniz Susar from, and also good morning, good day to all online participants. Deniz Susar from UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs. First of all, on behalf of UNDESA and on behalf of USG, we thank the government of Kenya for hosting us here this week and also for stepping up to host the 2026 annual meeting. We also deeply appreciate Kenya's leadership and efforts during the WSIS Plus 20 process, which helped lead to a decision to establish the IGF as a permanent forum. And it's also very meaningful that this first in-person meeting of the new cycle is in Nairobi. We have also worked with Kenya in various processes at the UN, and we really value this partnership moving forward. We also want to thank the MAC chair, MAC members, and the wider IGF community for all the work already done for this meeting. UNDESA will continue to support this process together with the host country, the MAC, and the IGF Secretariat. It's now my pleasure to introduce a video message from Mr. Lee Junho, Undersecretary General for Economic and Social Affairs. Can we please play the video?
We can also come back to it after the host country presentation, if that helps.
Then we pass the mic over to. Okay.
Okay.
Are they okay?
Yeah, he says we should go carry.
You're making me work for airbaggers. Good morning again. Good morning. I have to check the pulse of the room every time. Thank you so much. I think this will be short because I think we have a session in the afternoon where we plan to be a little bit more detailed. For sure, thank you so much. I think, as you well know, we were handed over the baton, I think in May, somewhere on the 24th of May. From then on, of course, we have we have one host co-chair and two alternates. So myself and principal secretary for broadcast and communication. Preparations are one is that we have identified potential two venues as of course this one, but also the president's preference is the Bomas International Conference Center. We did have a visit with the team yesterday. It's pretty massive. So in the afternoon, we'll probably show you the video of Bomas. So I think venue identification, yes, we have one. Two, we have a substantial and extensive, what we call an inclusive host country team. We have 18 members across the IGF groupings, 9 of the 14 women. I think we've tried to be as much as inclusive as possible. Of course, being fortunate, Kenya was the first country to have a local IGF forum. So we basically benefited from that legacy and kind of just picked people from that, but also expanded it broadly to private sector and civil society, including the UN Resident Coordinator's Office. I think our new innovation is we have children represented and women having representatives from the Office of the First Lady. In terms of branding, yes, we have our website, which we share soon. The URL is igf2026.ke. We have somebody in the group who's promoting KE, so we hope that IGF will also help us promote our domain, our local domain. We, of course, also have, beyond just the kind of host committee, we also have, of course, His Excellency the President being very keen on this iteration being very different. And when we say preparation for us is being different means we have cabinet level involvement. We are, yes, still having a conversation on the host country agreement with the Secretariat, but the idea is to think about...
Dear members of the
that's not me for sure, is to think about what happens post IGF on the 19th of December. Of course, we also have committees that we've set up beyond the host committee. So we have, of course, foreign affairs, we have visa. I hope nobody had visa problems when you came. No problem, right? So we are ready for the forum. That's the point. We're basically testing to see whether we'll have challenges. We also potentially also have various work streams. So with the team, of course, we've met Parliament, we've met Judiciary. I know the team is splitting today also to meet Parliament. So we'll also have a very vibrant parliamentary and judiciary track. We've worked with the judiciary to the extent that they understand this process. We've also started socializing IGF. So we started with the AI everything. So for those of you who are here in May, we also did that with the Global Data Festival in the beginning of June 2 to 5. We also have a good roadmap for ANGA, but also the World Data Forum this is in Riyadh, and potentially something also in the margins of in the next 10 days at the Global AI Forum, the Global AI Dialogue Conference. I think for us, those are the big pieces. With the theme, I'll hold that for for the afternoon. So I'm trying to split the afternoon presentation and this presentation. I think with that, just in the spirit of understanding our mindset, in terms of organization, we're ready. In terms of collaboration, we're ready. I think we're looking forward to ensuring that, yes, as much as we have a host country mag, please feel free to be very provocative to be very innovative, because Kenya, we move differently. Also because we understand this is the first IGF under this new mandate, we need to set the bar so high that you set the precedence for the next IGFs. And when we say the bar is so high, it means multi-stakeholder involvement, gender inclusivity, topics as diverse as possible, but responsive to the real challenges that we have. If you look at the theme that will display this afternoon, is across these big issues. Sovereignty is a big deal right now. Concentration of power in terms of internet is a big deal, especially between amongst few countries and a few companies. Issues around the unfinished business of the SDGs. We are 4 years out of the Sustainable Development Goals. So how will IGF remind us that the global goals still matter? And Kenya, again, was the country that negotiated the SDGs. So we know the responsibilities that we have as a host country. Finally, I think it will be also very, very remiss not to understand that Kenya does not speak about Kenya, we also speak about Africa. So our posture is also that also African countries will see themselves in the IGF in December 2026. Let's also not forget inclusivity around persons with disability or different able persons, because interesting as much as the internet is progressing, we are regressing in terms of inclusivity. I think with that's our posture, and I wanted us to see that with the extent of sovereignty is a big deal. Inclusivity in terms of digital public infrastructure, digital public goods is a big deal. Power in terms of access is going to be a big deal. But also I think, and we always forget that where is a space of countries within the global ecosystem, because not all countries are created equal. So for us, even beyond African countries, is to understand what capabilities are we thinking that the multi-stakeholder capabilities can build capacity of countries, especially around negotiations. Because this is something that we've seen in the GDC, we'll see it in the Global Dialogue Mechanism, we'll probably see it in the International Scientific Panel, where other countries are just less capable of engaging in these issues than others. So as much as we look at governments and countries, let's also understand that people are in very different spaces. So how do we leverage this space to ensure that? And finally, and let me end with that, is that, and I'm glad that the Secretariat is really looking at this, and thanks, Co-Chair, for pushing this, is that how do these three arms of government intersect? Judiciary, parliament, executive, and the multi-stakeholder ecosystem around private sector, civil society, innovators in this particular space, and academia, so that whole systems thinking delivers this public good that is the internet in these very challenging times of fractured multilateralism.
Thank you, Co-Chair, for this amazing, I guess, overview of a lot. I think we need to remember to be collaborative, to be innovative, and dare I say, use your word, provocative here, because again, Kenya moves differently. I'm just quoting, it's a really good quote here. Here, I'm going to open the floor a little bit for the Q&A on this particular thing, and then we'll come back to the welcome message. So do we have any questions right now regarding the overview?
Christine, online.
I see. We have Christine Arida online. Christine,
Yes.
please.
Thank you, Jen. Can you hear me well? Can you hear me?
Please go ahead, Christine.
Okay. First of all, I'm so sorry I cannot turn on my video, but I would like to extend thanks to everyone in the room, to the MAG and to you, Chair. I'm Christine Arida with the Government of Egypt, and I'm here attending those meetings as a representative of a former host. Egypt hosted the IGF before. So I just want to maybe thank Mr. Ambassador for Kenya's leadership. And I am so happy to hear him talk about Africa, because what I raised my hand for and I wanted to say is that we're looking forward to a lot of African engagement as we build up towards Nairobi. And I think it is a very great thing that we're focusing on how we can get governments participation well proliferated and engaged. And in that sense, I just want to say that we in Egypt are so happy that Kenya is leading those efforts, and we're so grateful that we can work together with them to build up to a really strong governmental participation, especially from African countries in the Nairobi IGF. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. I don't see any further hands in the Zoom room or online. So I think everybody is very pleased with the overview that we received from our co-chair. No questions. I think we need to warm up a little more.
Yeah.
Yes. No questions. Okay, holding your questions till later. So now I think we can move on to our welcome message from Undersecretary Lee.
Dear members of the Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group, distinguished participants, dear friends, it is a pleasure to address you at the first open consultations and the MAC meetings for the IGF 2026. I extend my deep appreciation to the MAC, the government of Kenya, and the broader IGF community for your continued leadership and commitment. Last year, following the WISS Plus 20 review, member states established the IGF as a permanent UN forum. This is a powerful endorsement of the IGF's unique multi-stakeholder model. As you shape the 2026 IGF and beyond, I urge you to send the core priorities identified in WISS Plus 20 review, including strengthening dialogue on emerging digital technologies and their governance implications, harnessing artificial intelligence globally within the internationally agreed framework of the guardrails, enhancing international cooperation to close the digital divide, and addressing the societal impact of digital technologies, including online safety, data governance, and digital inclusion. As we entered this new permanent phase, the IGF must serve as a critical bridge across the UN processes and the wider digital cooperation and the governance ecosystem. The recent expert group meeting highlighted the new opportunities and the responsibility in this regard. To succeed, we must broaden participation from the underrepresented stakeholders and deepen the government engagement, particularly from least developed countries, landlocked developing countries, and small island developing states. As preparations advance, I encourage you all to reflect perspectives from all the regions, especially Africa's dynamic digital landscape. Finally, the continued contributions of the IGF intersessional work under our national, regional, sub-regional, and the youth IGF initiatives remain vital, grounding our global discussions in diverse local realities. I wish you a highly productive meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Undersecretary General Lee, for the warm welcome message. I think there's very important points that Undersecretary General Lee has mentioned, especially when we're looking again at this permanent mandate for the IGF, how we need to set this bar very high, how we need to look at intersessional work, particularly with all the streams, the dynamic coalitions, the national, regional, sub-regional, and youth initiatives, and especially when our co-chair has mentioned, this being in Kenya, it's very important how we can bring Africa regional concerns and issues to the forefront. I think coming out of the 20-year review last year, it's more evident here more than ever, Global South issues and concerns really need to come up. And this is how we make this IGF extremely relevant and successful for this cycle. I think we're a little ahead of the program. I think we've been a little shy with speaking in the morning, at least for those here in Nairobi. Hopefully our community online will also warm up and think about all the questions that you have for this permanent mandate for the IGF. We need to really put our minds together collectively, our brain power to create this meeting. Now we have a little bit of time, but I think it's okay for us to go on to the next agenda item, which is the IGF 2025 stock taking considerations for IGF 2026. I know the IGF Secretariat has done quite a lot of input and analysis, so I'll pass the floor now to our Secretariat.
Yes, basically these are the inputs that were given at the end of the IGF 2025 meeting, and also written inputs that were sent to the IGF Secretariat on what worked well, what didn't work so well for the IGF 2025, and things that we should look at for IGF 2026 to see if we can make the meeting better for everybody. So I'll hand it over to Eleonora to give the presentation.
Thank you very much, Chengetai. Good morning, everyone. As Chengetai said, this is a tradition of the IGF. We run a stock-taking process every year right after the annual meeting. The feedback that we have compiled here is a combination of verbal inputs received in the open mic session at the end of the meeting, together with written inputs that we collect during a public call. So this is our kind of IGF customer satisfaction survey, if you will. So we can take a tour of how we did and what people said we should consider for 2026. So this is just a little overview of the public call we did. We kept this open for a couple of weeks right after the IGF 2025 annual meeting. These are some data on the respondents to the written inputs process. Not a very high number of written inputs, but again, this feedback is in combination with all the verbal feedback that we received at the end of the 2025 IGF. So a little look at the respondents. We see that the stakeholder group to have most responded was civil society. The regional group was the African region. And most people, around 66%, responded in their personal capacity rather than on behalf of organizations. I think for our purposes, it's nice that a lot of the respondents came from the African region, since we will be in Africa this year. So the feedback we're getting is from here, in a way. Okay, so let's dive right in. As you can see here, there is a positive column and a negative column. So the feedback that we received that was more positive, you'll see next to the plus sign, and a little less positive, what people thought worked a little less well, next to the minus sign. So this presentation is posted online. I'm not going to go through all of these bullets. I will just focus on what the main takeaways for us are on each of the areas that we surveyed. So in terms of the overall program and sessions, I think there are two messages that we can take away from what people have said, which is that folks want to see focus in the program. You'll see the language here, focus on 4 or 5 core global priorities. So make the topics that are most urgent in the program clearer and emphasize them. And very simply, make the sessions as interactive and innovative as possible. I think the IGF has been a pioneer in terms of innovative session formats, but when you run a big annual meeting every year, you always have to kind of improve on what you did last and meet people's expectations. So we're taking that into account. And when people say innovative and dynamic, they really also mean, make sure you're always engaging people on site and online. So here is a little bit of feedback on the kind of mix of participants that were present at the 2025 IGF. I think there are two pieces of feedback here that are interesting for us. One is that we did have people say that we should consider creating a governmental space, especially to attract participants from the Global South. This is interesting because it's on our agenda in this meeting. It was called for in the WSIS Plus 20 resolution, and it was already something on people's minds at the end of the 2025 IGF. So I think this gives us encouragement for toward that discussion that this is something that people want to see. And also to engage startups, SMEs, local innovators. We're always trying to boost private sector participation in the IGF, but when we say that, we don't just mean, the typical players, big tech, the companies that everybody knows. We also want the participation of startups, local digital communities. So we received a lot of feedback on our intersessional activities and the national and regional IGFs. So I'm going to take these together. Obviously, NRIs, the national and regional IGFs, are not the same as our intersessional policy activities. They are independent IGF initiatives, but in a way they interact with the annual meeting program in a similar way, in that they feed into the annual meeting program, perhaps in a less formalized way. But I think when people are at the annual meeting, they're thinking about the NRIs and our policy activities that we call policy networks, best practice forums, dynamic coalitions, in the same way, in that these are communities working around the year and that they come to the IGF and present. So there were some common themes in terms of the feedback that people gave on the intersessional activities and NRIs. And so the main one is really this, is to try to spur more collaboration among them, and also try to have them align more with the annual meeting program, so that you really see the IGF ecosystem coming together at the annual meeting. And on the intersessional activities in particular, so on our policy networks, best practice forums, and dynamic coalitions, there was also a bit of common feedback on them specifically, which is to very basically make their work more visible, both throughout the year and at the annual meeting. These groups do really excellent work on issues like cybersecurity, AI, meaningful access, and people want to be able to, access their outputs more easily, to engage with them more easily. So just shine a bigger spotlight on them was the message there. So now I'm just going to zero in on a few of the main tracks that we have at the annual meeting. So one is the high-level leaders track. And I think here it's nice because we got a few pieces of very practical feedback for this track. One was to include a clear engagement proposal for the high-level people that we invite. That means when you're inviting a high-level person, tell them, hey, there are plenty of other activities at the IGF aside from this set of sessions that we're inviting you to that will be interesting for you. So highlight that for them so that we can attract more high-level people. Provide more inclusive participation opportunities within the track. And I think we can read this to mean don't take such a narrow view of what a leader is. There are youth leaders, there are leaders of marginalized communities. So when you have a high-level leaders track, take leaders from everywhere. And finally, high-level people often use the IGF to announce initiatives. So when that's done, have a mechanism to follow up on them so that there's continuity between the IGF and those initiatives. So a few pieces of feedback also on our parliamentary track, which I think were interesting. One is to not just engage parliamentarians who are on ICT committees who deal with digital issues. As we know, digital is everything now. Engage parliamentarians from, human rights committees, from rural development committees. They can be just as relevant, just as interesting to have in a conversation during parliamentary sessions at the IGF. Another is to have more dynamic session formats for the parliamentary sessions at the IGF. And I think here it's nice because the focus is on moving from information sharing to collaborative policy building. So you really have parliamentarians not just exchanging what they're doing with one another, but maybe making policy together. So evolving those session formats in that way. And finally, to make sure that the parliamentary track is more integrated in the IGF annual meeting program, that it doesn't operate as a silo. I think there's been incredible recognition of the value of having this parliamentary track, and you really want the entire IGF annual meeting to benefit from the presence of these parliamentarians. I think it's really quite unique, the number of parliamentarians that we're able to attract to the annual meeting every year, and also just how cross-national they are. There are very few gatherings like that, and that should be something that the whole meeting really takes advantage of. And on the youth track, again, I think another component of the IGF annual meeting program that there's a consensus is incredibly dynamic and valuable. And the main message here was quite simply, use the young people who are in the youth track. Don't cordon them off into this youth track. Make sure that they're integrated into the program, and don't use young people in a tokenistic way in sessions. Make sure that they are always present as a matter of course. I think it's just so obvious as to be a cliche that digital issues are particularly affecting young people and their future, and there's no reason why they shouldn't always be in the room. So I think that's the message to take away here on the youth track. And finally, on our communications, outreach, and outputs, when I saw this, I thought of this, quote, communications only works for the people who work at it, which means that communications work is never done. So you could cover this area forever. But that being said, I do think that there are, again, two very pragmatic pieces of feedback that we received here that we can absolutely action and work on in 2026. And one is to really treat the run-up to the IGF as a communications campaign. So, put out video explainers, infographics, put out material that is accessible and relatable to people, especially for people who are coming into contact with the IGF ecosystem for the first time. It can seem rather daunting, complex. You need this kind of accessible material for people, and put it out well in advance to get them interested and engaged. And the good news there is that we are already starting to do that. Our communications colleague, Herman, is in the middle of actually producing just such kind of video explainers. So we're happy to say that we'll be putting those out soon. And finally, and very basic, but it's always something that we can do better, make our outputs more accessible, more searchable, more visible. I mean, the IGF is a vast ecosystem and repository of expertise that is constantly churning out wonderful outputs, not just the annual meeting outputs, our intersessional policy activities, our judiciary, parliamentary activities, what have you. They all have outputs. Just make them easier for people to see and consult, and we will absolutely keep working on that too in 2026. So I will stop here. Of course, happy to take any questions. And there is actually an expanded version of this presentation online for people who want to see feedback on some other aspects of the meeting, like logistics or the village. Oh, sorry.
I'll just read it out. Greetings, First, I'm happy to be attending such a wonderful meeting. I have one concern. The stocktaking identifies insufficient African participation and underrepresentation of least developed countries in global digital governance processes. As IGF 2026 will be hosted in Kenya, what specific measures will the MAG and the Secretariat take to ensure African stakeholders are not only present, but meaningfully shaping agendas, outcomes, and leadership roles throughout the IGF cycle? Okay.
That's not for the secretary, that's for the co-chair. No, I think a couple of things, and as you heard in my opening remarks, that was exactly the point that we made, that we do not want Kenya to be a venue. It needs to be to truly represent African participation. And as I said, we started this before. For those of you who remember, we actually had the Africa-France Summit in Nairobi. I ran the digital and tech track. What we've also agreed with the president is that this will be a continuation of that. Beyond just Africa participation, our idea is to bring the unusual African countries to participate, because we know we always have the big five, the big six. What about the others, the Namibias, the Benins? And so I think that's what we are really insisting on. And beyond Africa participation, of course, we have the high-level track. We are aiming presidential/ministerial track. And to our understanding also, we do not just want ministers of ICTs. We are very clear. We want to spread it across. It needs to be areas within we feel Africans have challenges around technology. And in most cases, it's statistical offices, planning ministries, it's ministries of inclusivity, it's also mayors and cities. So I think that's kind of the scope we are thinking. Of course, everything is subject to time, but also resources. So we will indulge people to understand that we will, as much as possible, extend that, but to the extent of what resources allow. Yesterday, actually concurrently, there's a meeting of cities happening here now. And I spoke about the IGF yesterday in the same meeting. And the idea is also, how do we get mayors to actually engage in this as part of the IGF? So yes, you will see us move very, as I said, we move differently. And African participation is in the design. This is not a Kenya event, please. If anybody thinks this is Kenya, we are co-hosting it, but it's basically an African event.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. There is now a queue.
We are also doing outreach and engagement through the national and regional initiatives, not just in Africa, but in also other underrepresented regions, encouraging them to come forward and to engage with us as well. And we're offering specific help for that. Fundraising, we're also trying to fundraise for to bring people to Kenya. It's actually much cheaper for us to bring people from Africa to Kenya now than it was to bring them to Norway, for instance, etc. So we're doing that. And we're also, since all of us looking at me, we will also work with ISOC and ICANN with their ambassadorial program to bring people as well. So there are lots of different conversations going on how we can actually get those people from not just Africa, but from the SIDS as well, as Tracy was mentioning in the chat here, SIDS, LDCs. I have no idea what PWDs is. Oh, disabilities. Oh, sorry. Yes. Yes. Persons with disabilities is something that we actually talked about yesterday as well. So we do have, we are planning for that, and we're keeping them in mind as well. Thank you. Yes, we have one person in the local, is it Judy? Yes, Judy, I think you all know her, or most of you do know her. So she's looking after that as well. So there's a question about visas. How about the visa issue for the participants?
I don't think that's an issue. It's never an issue for us. As we said, you can, well, the best thing is apply early. We have something called an ETA, electronic travel authorization. It's really not a visa. But we've never had anybody having those challenges. But just in case you have it, we have somebody in the committee from immigrations. Channel it to us. We will sort it out. But please don't apply late. Not 24 hours to travel. Please. 72 hours latest. That's my advice.
Yeah, just to add on that, Kenya has this e-visa thing that they have, ETA, that they have implemented, and Kenya is very, very open. It is, and it's very, very efficient. You'll get it, and you don't have to come in and get an interview and bring, 6 months back statements, etc. It's very easy, and really, I think it's one of the smoothest that I've seen so far. On the queue, we have Victoria, and then we'll have Olive.
Hi, hello, can you hear me? Just to ensure. Hello,
Yes, we
hello.
can hear you.
Oh, okay. So I'm representing today the Women in Technology group of Women in Technology Sweden. We're the global organization, and I'm happy to have this opportunity to represent this group today. So, and by the way, we had our global gathering in Cape Town this year. So we are very much global and international. And we all agree that our common responsibility is to move towards those high bars Mr. Ambassador told us about, and to build the trust and to ensure the tangible digitalization, right? And what I've noticed working with global organizations and as an executive technologist, and also as the ambassador for AI and technology for developing countries from Germany, from Sweden, and from Poland, what sometimes we are not lacking is not the ideas and the realization. What we are lacking is the roadmap. So the roadmap divided into the smaller pieces and with the clear results which are measurable on each step. So what today I wanted to bring on the table is maybe try to help to guide people with those fantastic ideas, organizations with fantastic results, to focus, to don't blur the focus, and just to take the piece which is absolutely to the point for them and follow the measurable KPIs. I think that that is something that might help us all, just to set the goal, to measure that clearly, and to help people to find their path. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. That's a very good reminder for MAG members who are listening. We need to make sure we have a roadmap and measurable KPIs or measurable goals, especially for this cycle. Now we have a hand from Olaf. Olaf, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a question about the stakeholder summary. When I read it back home, I made a note, this must be done, but how will it be done? Now, you gave that a lot of color, Eleonora, and in the follow-up question about the African participation, there is a clear how, so I'm going to amend my question a little bit. What are the things in the summary at the 226, what needs to be done, that are difficult, where we actually need to innovate, and how will we get to that innovation? So what are the things that people say, this must be done in 2026, where the Secretariat says, this is where we need your help?
I can
Okay.
Thank you, Olaf, for the question. I think this is, for the whole Secretariat, so Chengetai and I will both answer. But reading through the feedback, and maybe this came through to those listening, what is the most challenging, and this was discussed quite a bit at the expert group meeting that we held too, was really bringing more coherence to all the different parts of the IGF ecosystem, because we really have people power. We have a lot of people participating, a lot of people energized and engaged, and the fact that we're so open and that they're able to act independently, speak openly, organize their own activities is a strength, but it also means that sometimes it looks like there's a little bit of lack of alignment, but we're always trying to pull that in. So that's I mean, a challenge, but again, it also speaks to one of the big strengths of the IGF.
Yeah, and basically anything that needs resources, of course, is always a challenge. You have a specific amount of resources. So if you give to item A, you cannot probably give to item E, for instance. So it's very difficult to try and balance which exactly has priority. And also for the program coherence and duplication, we've had all this all the time. The workshop can have the same title, with a comma, and the workshop proponents will argue that they're totally different, and they cover this from this angle and they cover that from the other angle, and their workshop will change the face of internet governance for the next 10 years. So how do you manage that? Mergers are always very, very difficult, because what you end up is not a merged unified thing, but basically they take a little break and a new set of panelists come. So it's a whole lot of how do we do that? And as Eleonora was saying, this people-driven, individualistic, how do we overcome that? Yeah.
Now we have 2 flags up. I'm just reminding us all, we did have a short break, but this is an important discussion. So we can take the two, but know that that means our break will be a little bit shorter. So now next we have, 3. So first we have our representative from Acre.
That might be that.
Thank you so much, the chair, co-chair, and the secretariat for the good work that you're doing. Sorry to just take us slightly back. I think I was still on the queue. My co-chair, Balozi, I think my name is Keith Andere from the Youth IGF, but most importantly, from the local organizing committee for the Global IGF 2026 in Kenya. But mine is just to encourage my co-chair, Balozi. I like that you said, it's our time to promote .ke, but also looking at the number of people who are going to travel into Kenya. Maybe one of the ways we can also make it accessible, we can encourage them to fly the Pride of Africa, Kenya Airways. And I know you're well within capacity to reach out to Kenya Airways and see if we can have a discounted ticketing. It could be a code for the IGF participants to just make it accessible to people, but most importantly, to ensure that they fly the Pride of Africa. Thank you so much.
I just, okay. I was hesitating to do the comments, but I can't help it not to make that comments. My comment is as follows. It's really very sad that after 20 years of existing of the Internet Governance Forum, we still, as Africans, how can I say, ask for our participation to be supported. Despite the fact that the African Union has created the African Internet Governance Forum, many countries have created their national Internet Governance Forums. Governments still don't understand this platform of multi-stakeholders to look at the global governance, digital governance. I think an effort has to be made from the Secretariat, from the UN institutions, to more educate the African governments of the importance of IGF and support their national internet governance forums and make the African participation meaningful rather than just staying all the time by individuals, and which I really support that pro bono and voluntary kind of enthusiasm from most of the Africans that are here coming by themselves, supporting their activities by themselves. But it is not sustainable. It's not sustainable. It doesn't support the coherence of digital governance at the national level and contributing to the global digital governance. Sorry for that comments, but I couldn't help it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Winnie Kamal. I come from the Africa Internet Governance Forum MAG. As the vice chair of the MAG, I am cognizant of some of the challenges that has already been raised here. And one thing I'm looking at, the reality right now, even for our region, especially the East African region, Balozi, is that Africa IGF, the East African IGF is supposed to be held in DRC this year. But because of what is happening now, we've tried to move it to Burundi, but we still have challenges. How are we able to bring those voices? Because DRC has a big community. And if things remain constant, they'll be left out. We have Burundi, which is a growing community also. If things remain constant, there are many voices that are going to be left out. I remember last year, we even did because I'm in the media, we did a story and we were talking about how as low as their mobile connectivity, like once they have a blackout, you can imagine they don't have internet. That's a challenge. And then to Madam Eleonora, she mentioned about communication, which I'm really passionate about. And I remember in 2025, we did have, is it 2024? Yes, we did have the media group coming in and being supported and running stories. Is it the same for this year or do we plan to make it bigger? Thank you.
Sure. Can you hear me? Oh, good. This is working. Thank you, Winnie, for the question on communications and the journalists that we invited for the first time in 2024. We did so again in 2025 with a different group of journalists. Of course, my ambition would be to make this very big, but we're limited by the amount of money we have to support them. So just in short, this was a small group of journalists from the Global South who we supported to come to the IGF and produce and invited to produce a variety of media on the meeting. So, you know, we had written articles, podcasts, videos, and it was very dynamic. And although this was not intended at the outset to be a capacity building initiative, it was really meant as a way, first of all, to just give an opportunity to journalists who can't often travel, that opportunity to travel, and to bring more visibility to the IGF. But it turned out that it was also a capacity building initiative because they came out of it really understanding the IGF in a way they would never have if they had not traveled and had not come into contact with this opportunity. So we will absolutely be doing this again, and we will see what our means enable us to do in terms of the size of the group. Yes.
I apologize, after one, I'll have to come back. One, I think with Kenyawis, I don't think that's an issue. You're in the host committee, so we should be able to talk to Kenyawis in terms of providing a code. I think to the extent of Mokhtar's point, I think, and this is something that we have to think about, right? Previously, it wasn't permanent. IGF was never permanent. I think now it's permanent. It's member states who negotiated for it to be permanent. We helped negotiate it with the African countries as part of G77 and China. So I think there's a way that we can place that responsibility on countries to understand that now that you made it permanent, you need to strengthen its permanence by participating. So hopefully between ourselves here, we can message it with my colleagues in New York, but also with the African ambassador here, because this is also where they all sit. So this is something that we hope with my colleague, Ambassador Ida, we will ensure that we have an outreach session here. For Winnie, I think a couple of things we have to do. One, and this is the problem of having something in transition to be permanent, but also thinking about the structure downstream, right? So I think this is something that we hope as Kenya, because we help negotiate this, we can help countries understand the importance of this multi-stakeholder collaborative framework. So it means for me, for example, I think it could be interesting for us to figure out, because of Ebola, we are not, and I'm sure Uganda will suffer the same fate, is how do we anticipate this crisis of a pandemic in a way that will ensure potential remote participation. So maybe this is an issue of resourcing and an issue of clustering. So can we host listening rooms in those countries so that they can participate? Because these are just our realities, that if there's a pandemic, you cannot travel. It's nothing that we can do. But part of my speech was, again, somewhere there I didn't speak about it, was we live in an era of crisis and pandemics. So how do we leverage off capabilities like this to ensure participation? So it means, for example, different outreach to folks like GSMA, for example, who we're not thinking about, to create those kind of listening spots, MTN. So maybe that's something we need to work together to anticipate. If people can't travel, one, two, if the pandemic spread, what are the risks? And maybe potentially between ourselves and the Secretariat is to develop a risk matrix, because this is not, we just live in an era of uncertainty. But for participation, let's see how we can ensure that we get people to participate. With that, I beg to leave and come back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. I see there is one more hand from Zhang Xiao. So I'll close the line here. After Zhang Xiao, we'll take a 5-minute leg stretch and we need to go on to the next agenda item.
Thank you, Chair. I think it is a very successful beginning for this term of the MAC, and I really enjoy it. And I see a lot of progress from our co-chair from the host country. Only one comment. I think I want to echo the lady just spoke. The involvement of the media is so important. I have the experience that the successful of one event, parties depend on the media, because the storytelling of IGF is so important. It's not only who know it, but to the public who don't know IGF. So we should work on that, get the ball rolling. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zhang Xiao. We need to frame the narrative well, MAG, Secretariat, community alike. I know we're a little bit over time, but I will not be that chair that does not give people a break. So let's give ourselves a 5-minute break, because there are also organizations online waiting to speak in the next agenda item. So we will start promptly at 5:02 at the hour, and we'll start with the next agenda item. I think the Secretariat will have the list of speakers ready as well, so you know who you are and you will know when you need to speak. So let's start promptly at 10:55 Nairobi time. So you have 6 minutes to stretch your legs and get coffee if you need coffee. which is item the Global Digital Compact, Global Dialogue on AI Governance and other major digital governance processes. I believe the Secretariat has a list of speakers, and each of them do have 2 minutes each for their intervention. And our first speaker is from UNECA and Soreen Asefa. I apologize if I mispronounced your name, but if you are ready and online, the floor is now yours, Soreen.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Madam Chair, you pronounced my name very well. Thank you so much. Okay, I am pleased to speak on behalf of UNECA and the African IGF Secretariat, which is hosted by UNECA in close collaboration with the African Union Commission. The adoption of the Pact of the Future, including the Global Digital Compact and the Declaration on the Future Generation in 2024, together with the successful conclusion of WISES Plus 20 review in December 2025, marked an important milestone in the evolution of global digital cooperation. Collectively, the process reaffirmed the continued relevance of the WISES framework, highlighting key priority for next digital cooperation. Most importantly, they signaled a shift from a global conversation from norm setting to implementation. As a regional commission, UNECA sees its role as a supporting African member state in translating this very global digital commitment into national and regional action, while strengthening coherence between the WISES framework, the Global Digital Compact, our Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, and the Sustainable Development Goals. To this end, UNECA will convene the Africa's Regional WISES Forum from the 1st to the 2nd July in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. The forum will focus on operationalizing the WISES Plus 20 outcome and identifying practical approach from implementation, monitoring, and follow-up across the continent. At the same time, the Africa IGF is evolving beyond an annual forum into a platform for coordination, community engagement, knowledge exchange, implementation support across Africa digital governance ecosystem. Our priority over the coming year, including the advancing Africa's digital development priority, and also moving from fragmented implementation efforts toward a more coordinated ecosystem approach that connects national, sub-regional, regional, and global processes. We believe that the national and the regional IGF initiative, NRIs, represent one of the most matured multi-stakeholder infrastructure available to support the implementation by facilitating stakeholder mobilization, capacity development, policy incubation, peer learning, implementation support, and progress tracking. To support this objective, the African IGF Secretariat will launch community consultation process in mid-July to explore how NRI ecosystem can be leveraged to advance the implementation of the WISES action line and the global digital commitment at a national, sub-regional, and regional levels. Our objective is to develop Africa's implementation architecture that strengthens collaboration among NRIs, regional commission, regional economic community, and other stakeholders while helping connecting the global commitment to local action. The outcome of this process will be presented and validated at the 50th Annual Africa Internet Governance Forum, which will be hosted in Accra, Ghana from the 2nd to the 5th November 2026 under the overarching theme, Advancing Africa's Digital Future Through Innovation, Inclusion, and Trust. As we look ahead, we encourage the Internet Governance Forum community to place a great emphasis on operationalizing the Net Mundial principle at all levels, while strengthening efforts related to implementation, financing, capacity development, and impact measurement. At the Africa level, we are broadening participation through the introduction of Judiciary Roundtable and Africa Children IGF, complementing our existing parliamentarian and youth track for this year IGF. This initiative reflects our commitment to strengthen multi-stakeholder participation, and ensuring that our wide range of stakeholders contribute to shaping Africa's digital future. Most importantly, the challenge before us is no longer the absence of framework, principle, or commitment. The challenge is how to translate these commitments into measurable impact and tangible development outcome and the real benefit for our commitment, for our community. Finally, I just want to announce that the call for session and speakers for African IGF is now open. Even our registration is open. So on behalf of UNECAM, the African Internet Governance Secretariat, and our MAG and the government of Ghana, we look forward to welcoming you to Accra and working together, advancing Africa's digital future through innovation, inclusion, and trust. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Serene. Thank you for the statement and contribution from UNECA. Now I will move to Internet Society, Olaf Kolkman.
Thank you. Yes, and although my personal capacity serving on the MAC aligns with the Internet Society, it's my employer. This letter will be from my employer, so I'll be reading it. Thank you, Chair and colleagues. Following the WSIS Plus 20 review, the IGF community enters a new phase. The outcome reaffirmed the multi-stakeholder model and gave the IGF a permanent mandate. This decision is a recognition of the forum's value as a global space for inclusive internet governance dialogue. However, permanence brings responsibility. The focus is now on ensuring the IGF is sustainable, well-resourced, and able to support meaningful participation and follow-up on global commitments. At the same time, recent developments remind us that multi-stakeholderism cannot be taken for granted. The cancellation of key global convenings, such as RightsCon, illustrates how quickly spaces for engagement can disappear. When that happens, stakeholder voices risk being excluded from shaping outcomes. This reinforces the importance of the IGF as a resilient and open platform. It's not just a place for dialogue, but a critical mechanism to ensure that diverse stakeholders continue to have a seat at the table, even in challenging geopolitical context. Looking ahead, we see three priorities. Firstly, strengthening the IGF's role in the WSIS Plus 20 implementation. As WSIS Plus 20 moves forward roadmaps, metrics, and accountability, the IGF can help ensure these processes remain inclusive and informed by all stakeholders. Secondly, supporting the broader IGF ecosystem. In addition to a strong IGF secretariat, national, regional, sub-regional, and youth IGFs are essential to producing lasting impact and connecting local realities with global discussions. In 2025 alone, the Internet Society Foundation proudly supported the IGF Trust Fund, 37 NRIs, and 25 schools of internet governance with more than $520,000 US. Thirdly, and finally, protecting the integrity of the multi-stakeholder model. We're convinced that any evolution of the IGF should reinforce its open bottom-up nature and avoid creating structures that limit or fragment participation. That's why we organized a consultation to invite our community to share their ideas on how the IGF should evolve. Their responses will inform our non-paper on priorities for the WSIS Plus 20 implementation, which will appear shortly in about 1 or 2 weeks. In short, while WSIS Plus 20 outcome documents strengthen the IGF mandate, the current environment shows why that mandate matters. The IGF must continue to provide a trusted, inclusive space for collaboration, especially when other avenues for participation are under pressure. Thank you.
Thank you, Internet Society. Thank you for the important reminder that we need all voices at the table and we shouldn't fragment participation. Now I'll move on to the Association for Progressive Communications, APC, and I believe we have Pavitra Ranujam speaking on behalf of APC. Pavitra, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you to the chair and the MAG for this opportunity. I'm Pavitra Ramanujam, and I will be representing APC and will seek to briefly answer the questions that have been shared with us today. This year, together with the AUC and Research ICT Africa, APC will organize the 14th edition of the African School on Internet Governance, which will be held alongside the Africa IGF in Accra in October. AfriSIG represents a long-standing partnership for APC with both Africa IGF as well as the IGF Secretariat that we look forward to continuing. We will also actively engage, as we have done in the past, through the MAG and MSG at regional IGFs in Africa, Asia Pacific, and Latin America and the Caribbean. We're committed to developing an in-depth study to better understand how multi-stakeholder approaches can be practically implemented, especially at the national level, drawing on the Sao Paulo multi-stakeholder guidelines, providing guidance on how internet governance processes can be inclusive and meaningfully participatory in practice. We also remain committed to actively engaging in the policy networks on digital inclusion and on securing core internet resources and civilian access in context of conflict and crisis, the latter title still to be finalized. Looking ahead to IGF 2026, we would like for the IGF to take up for discussion complex and even controversial issues that are not being discussed in an open, inclusive, and bottom-up manner elsewhere. A clear example is the relationship between digital technologies and militarization, an increasingly urgent and consequential issue that is not being adequately addressed in spaces where civil society, affected communities, and other stakeholders can meaningfully engage. Another issue, for instance, is corporate accountability of tech companies for upholding human rights, but also the internet-based business models that are destroying increasingly the open public internet, models that concentrate power, extract data and value, and undermine public interest infrastructures, eroding conditions for a free, open, and rights-respecting internet. The IGF should be a space where these questions can be discussed seriously, openly, and from multiple perspectives, not simply identified as emerging issues, but examined in ways that can generate meaningful policy responses that offer strong and clear messaging that can be used by policymakers and others in positions of power to influence change. For this to happen, the IGF needs to look carefully at its formats and session structures, at how it can build and deepen discussions across the program. The messages should reflect substantive, sustained, and deliberate engagement on key issues, and not merely an aggregate of session reports. Finally, if the IGF is to fulfill its permanent mandate, it must have the institutional capacity to become impactful. The Secretariat needs the capacity to liaise effectively with governments, particularly those in the global south, but also others. It also needs the capacity to engage with linked digital policy processes and to facilitate stronger linkages with the broader IGF ecosystem, including to facilitate bottom-up participation at the thematic, national, regional, and global levels in the follow-up and implementation of the outcomes of the WSIS Plus 20 and GDC processes. There is an urgent need to ensure greater alignment, synergies, and coherence between the different elements and components of the IGF. This means integrating the IGF ecosystem and the annual program more closely so that national, regional, and youth IGFs, dynamic coalitions, best practice forums, and intersessional work can reinforce one another and contribute to more coherent and impactful outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, APC, for important contributions there. Reminder, of course, for the MAG and, of course, the Secretariat and the community collectively to be able to affect this actual alignment, especially in the program and coherency. Next, I will go to UNESCO. I believe we have John Okande on site speaking on behalf of UNESCO.
Thank you, everyone. I'll go ahead and read UNESCO's statement. Madam Chair of the MAG, Co-Chair, distinguished MAG members, colleagues, UNESCO congratulates the newly appointed MAG and its chair, and welcomes the confirmation of the IGF as a permanent UN forum. We also want to thank the government of Kenya for hosting this meeting in IGF 2026. UNESCO remains fully committed to advancing together with the IGF community an open, inclusive, human rights-based, and people-centered digital ecosystem. Allow me to highlight three key messages from UNESCO. First, strengthening ethical and human rights-based digital and AI policymaking and governance frameworks. UNESCO is supporting the translation of the global recommendations on ethics of artificial intelligence adopted in 2021 into concrete policies, tools, and institutional capacities. We are advancing evidence-informed policymaking through internet and AI readiness assessment, which by now we have completed in more than 80 countries across the world. We have consistently supported the global and regional norms aligned to see ethical principles, including the UN Digital Compact, AU Strategy on AI, and more recently, the ongoing recommendations of 630 and 631 being championed by the AU on platform governance and in public interest content. Secondly, scaling capacity building for digital transformation, AI, and data governance. We are expanding the Spark Alliance, now a global network of schools of public administration for research and knowledge on AI spanning over 113 countries. More than 50,000 civil servants, judges, regulators, and data practitioners have strengthened their capacities through MOOCs on AI and digital transformation in government, AI and rule of law, and data governance. Third, advancing platform governance and information integrity. UNESCO continues to implement its guidelines for the governance of digital platforms, focusing on strengthening multi-stakeholder mechanism, building regulatory capacities, and safeguarding information integrity in digital platform. We also emphasize that media information literacy as a critical component to complement regulatory approaches, including through education systems, family engagement, and work with content creators ecosystem. Looking ahead, building on WISE's plus 20, UNESCO together with the United Nations Group on Information Society is advancing roadmaps to strengthen implementation of WISE's action lines in line with the General Assembly mandate. In this context, IGF offers a critical platform whose outputs can directly inform these efforts and broader global digital governance processes, including AI. The IGF also remains a key platform to support implementation of WISE's plus 20 and Global Digital Compact resolutions. We see strong opportunities to collaborate in disseminating capacity building resources, supporting policy learning, and advancing dialogue on emerging issues, including fair compensation for news in digital environment. Thank you.
Thank you, UNESCO, for the important contribution. Indeed, IGF looks forward to strong collaboration with UNESCO to realize all of those items. Now we go to the International Chamber of Commerce. I believe we have many, Anastasio, on site.
You. I'm Menin Sasiabu, speaking on behalf of the International Chamber of Commerce. This is my day job capacity, so I'm also a private sector representative in the MAG. So I'll be reading out the statement. Chair, distinguished delegates, colleagues. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Chair, distinguished delegates and colleagues. More? Okay. Okay, sorry. I'm speaking on behalf of the International Chamber of Commerce, the institutional representative of more than 45 million companies in over 170 countries, and the ICC Business Action to Support the Information Society ICC Basis Initiative, which has served as the voice of global business in the WSIS process since its inception in 2003. Over the past 2 decades, we have remained actively engaged in the implementation and follow-up of the WSIS outcomes, convening business delegations to the WSIS Forum and the Internet Governance Forum, and contributing to successive review processes. Most recently, during the WSIS Plus 20 review process, ICC brought business perspectives to the stakeholder consultations, convened dialogues with partners to support the successful conclusion of the negotiations, and through our honorary chair, Maria Fernanda Garza, we also delivered remarks at the General Assembly, welcoming the by-consensus adoption of the WSIS Plus 20 outcome document. We remain committed to supporting its implementation with the same energy and dedication that has characterized our engagement over the past 20 years. Our work spans various issues raised both by the WSIS Plus 20 outcome document and the Global Digital Compact, and we're committed to work through the WSIS architecture on their implementation. Through our role as a private sector representative in the UN Commission on Science and Technology for Development Working Group on Data Governance, and through our engagement in the preparations for the inaugural Global Dialogue on AI Governance, ICC continues to bring practical business expertise to timely global discussions. Beyond these processes, ICC recently partnered with the WTO, the World Trade Organization, on a report examining the role of AI in trade. We are also collaborating with UNESCO's Business Council for AI Ethics to convene a webinar on the 1st of July to discuss how emerging developments, including agentic AI, remain human-centric and anchored in internationally agreed frameworks. On cybersecurity and cybercrime, we released our most recent publication, a cross-industry policy position on preventing online scams and fraud at the UN Global Fraud Summit in Vienna, also endorsing the summit's call for action. We are also convening businesses globally to contribute to discussions on the implementation of the UN Cybercrime Convention and the work of the UN Global Mechanism on ICT Security. Across these processes, we continue to advocate for meaningful stakeholder participation. As we look ahead, ICC remains firmly committed to the multi-stakeholder model that has underpinned the success of the WSIS from the very beginning. We look forward to the discussions this week and to continuing these conversations at the IGF later this year, mobilizing the global ICC business network, including in Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ICC. Very important intervention, especially looking towards, activating and engaging with the private sector, especially in the continent here. Now we go to RIPE NCC. I believe we have Desiree Milosevic Evans speaking on behalf of RIPE NCC.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me? I hope you do.
Yes, we can hear you.
Lovely. So we would like to thank the IGF Secretariat and MAG and the host country, Kenya, for convening these open consultations, and the RIPE NCC is pleased to continue its long-standing engagement with the IGF, the MAG, National, Regional, Sub-Regional Youth IGF initiatives and the wider governance community. In response to the questions raised by the MAG, we would like to highlight the following important areas. First, regarding our priorities for the coming year, the RIPE NCC will continue supporting our 20,000 plus members, the internet technical community, governments and regulators through capacity building, technical expertise and data-driven insights. Our work on IPv6, routing security, internet measurements, peering and resilience is part of a wider objective, helping communities build an internet that is globally interoperable, secure and resilient. And we see strong opportunities to collaborate with the IGF ecosystem by bringing practical experience from the operational side of the internet into policy discussions. Second, in the context of the WSIS Plus 20 follow-up, the Global Digital Compact and other UN processes, our key message is that implementation must be grounded in internet's operational foundations. So digital public infrastructure, AI, systems, cybersecurity frameworks, cloud services, and the cross-border digital cooperation all depend on resilient connectivity, secure routing, open standards, interoperability, and trusted technical coordination. The IGF can help ensure that these implementation processes do not become fragmented or disconnected. Third, looking ahead of the IGF 2026, we encourage the MAG and to reflect in 3 points of the program: the implementation, coherence, and participation. It would help if the IGF could move the discussion from principles to practice by focusing on what countries and communities actually need to implement inclusive, secure, and sustainable digital transformation, and on the coherence rather than treating the WSIS and the GDC implementation separately. In this case, it would strengthen the IGF's role as a space where diverse processes converge in an open multi-stakeholder participation. We believe that IGF should provide stronger visibility to national and regional, sub-regional IGF initiatives, network operator groups, youth, parliamentarians, governments, and capacity building for developing country stakeholder. This is essential if the digital global governance is to remain inclusive, practical, and connected to local realities. As the IGF has entered this permanent phase following WSIS Plus 20, the RIPE NCC stands ready to work with the IGF Secretariat, the MAG, and all stakeholders to strengthen the IGF's work to ensure it's globally anchored, locally connected through NRIs, technically resilient, and continuously impactful. Thank you.
Thank you, RIPE NCC. Particularly enjoy the principles to practice and the reminder that its implementation always relies on resilient, open, trusted internet operational realities and foundations. Now I will be moving to YouthDig. I believe Samriddhi Rawat will be speaking on behalf of YouthDig. The floor is now yours.
Thank you. My name is Samriddhi Rawat. I'm a youth digger who attended the European Dialogue on Internet Governance Youth Program, YouthDig 2026. My comments are based on the discussions we had with people all across Europe, but I'm speaking on my own behalf today. One idea that came up repeatedly in these conversations was the people most affected by digital systems are often the least involved in shaping them. We see this in AI algorithms used to profile people in hiring and education, and further on generative AI and social media enabling gender-based violence against women, LGBTQ+ communities, people of color, and people with disabilities. We see it in the spread of misinformation and disinformation, where the societal impacts are felt by millions, while decisions about platform design, content moderation, and AI systems remain concentrated in the hands of the few. Different harms, but the same root cause is here. Technologies are too often built without the perspective of communities most exposed to these risks. We see the same pattern in surveillance. Across many countries, increased digital surveillance is creating fear around expression and participation online, while those affected have lesser visibility into how these systems operate. And we see it in digital infrastructure itself. Regions hosting massive data centers bear environmental and economic costs, yet rarely have the meaningful voice in decisions that affect them. These may sound like different issues altogether, but they all point to the same governance challenge. The people most affected by digital technologies are too often absent from the conversations shaping their future. I have had the privilege of not just living in different countries, but in different continents, in regions that approach digital infrastructure and digital governance differently. But wherever we live, the same question remains: who gets the seat at the table? As we shape the IGF 2026 agenda, I encourage the IGF to continue prioritizing discussions on AI governance, internet integrity, information integrity, surveillance, and sustainable digital infrastructure. I also encourage the IGF to ensure that the communities most affected by these issues are represented not only in attendance, but as participants and panelists who shape the sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, YouthDig, for your contributions. Very important to note. Now I will move on to OECD. I believe Ariana Carbalido will be speaking on behalf of OECD. The floor is now yours.
Yes, thank you. I hope you can hear me well.
We can hear you.
Okay. I would like to start by thanking the IGF Secretariat for inviting us to participate in this first open consultation for the 2026 IGF. We regret not being able to join you in person, but we are grateful for the opportunity to contribute virtually. I will provide some highlights of the recent work of the OECD aligned with the work of the IGF in the area of digital policy. First, I'm pleased to inform you that the OECD Council adopted the OECD recommendation on quantum technologies in May. This recommendation represents the first intergovernmental standard establishing shared practices, principles, and policy guidance for the responsible development and use of trusted quantum technologies. It translates these principles into concrete policy actions to help governments foster innovation, manage risk, strengthen ecosystems, and deepen international cooperation. Turning to artificial intelligence, the Global Partnership on AI welcomed 2 new members, Malta and Saudi Arabia, at its council meeting in February 2026, bringing its membership to 46 countries participating on equal footing. Among GPAI recent deliverables is the AI Policy Toolkit, which includes an interactive self-assessment tool and implementation guidance available on OECD.ai. Drawing on good practices from all around the world, the toolkit supports governments in developing and implementing AI policies aligned with the human-centric values of the OECD AI principles. And its development has been informed by regional workshops focused on Southeast Asia, Latin America, and Africa, with the MENA region to follow. We look forward to participating in the UN Global Dialogue on AI and AI for Good Summit in July in Geneva. Earlier this year, we also published the 2026 Going Digital Integrated Policy Framework and Measurement Roadmap, which supports governments and stakeholders in adopting a more integrated approach to policymaking across 7 interrelated dimensions, identifying cross-cutting issues and providing guidance for a whole of economy and whole of society approach to digital policy. We are also advancing work on child safety online. Just yesterday, we held a high-level roundtable on regulatory cooperation for safer childhoods online as a G7 side event, and launched the report Growing Up in the Social Media Age, which provides data and analysis on young people experiences online. I encourage you to take a look. I will share the relevant materials and links in the chat. The OECD looks forward to participating in the 2026 edition of the IGF. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, OECD, and thank you also for offering to share the materials. I'm sure IGF Secretariat will be very happy to distribute this as well. Now we'll go to Lebanon IGF. I believe we have Zaina Boharb speaking on behalf. The floor is yours, Zaina.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share Lebanon IGF perspective. So from the perspective of the IG community in Lebanon, one of the biggest opportunities is to help turn global commitments into action on the ground. For countries like Lebanon, the IGF and its NRIs play an important role in bringing the outcomes of the WSIS Plus 20 and the Global Digital Compact closer to local communities through dialogue, through capacity building, and through the multi-stakeholder cooperation. We also see great value in learning from each other. Sharing experience and good practices and also practical solutions can help countries adapt a global framework to their own realities and to move more quickly from the discussions to the implementation. Looking ahead of IGF 2026, we would welcome a stronger focus on the implementation and on what is actually working in different countries. We would also encourage continued engagement of youth, technical communities, and stakeholders from developing countries whose perspectives are essential to shaping an inclusive digital future. From Lebanon IGF perspective, issues such as AI governance, cybersecurity, data governance, digital inclusion, and meaningful connectivity are still key priorities. These are not only governance issues, they are closely linked to development, to resilience, and to opportunities. And for this reason, in 2026, the Lebanese IGF, which will be held in October this year, will discuss the issues of digital resilience, trust, sustainable innovation for Lebanon recoveries. It will also include a capacity building session on the IG processes, global processes, I mean. So finally, we believe that the NRIs have a unique role in connecting global discussions with local realities, and we encourage continued support for the NRIs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lebanon IGF, and it's always very good to hear from the NRIs as well. I think we heard earlier from UNECA the welcoming to join in at the meeting in Accra, and of course, always for the NRIs, there is always the translation of the global priorities into local realities. So thank you very much, Lebanon IGF. Now I go to the African Union Commission. I believe we have Miret Wood-Matas speaking on behalf. I think
yes,
Ms.
I
Regis
am.
here. Please go ahead.
Madam Chair, co-chairs, distinguished members of SMAC members, representative of member states, regional and international organizations, internet governance experts, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. On behalf of the African Union Commission, allow me to express sincere appreciation to the government of Kenya and the IGF Secretariat, the MAC Chair, and all IGF community for continued commitment to advance inclusive and effective internet governance. Also, allow me to convey our regret for not being able to join you physically in Nairobi. The African Union Commission values the Internet Governance Forum as a unique platform for dialogue, cooperation, consensus building among governments, the private sector, the technical community, civil society, and academia. At a time when digital technologies are increasingly shaping economic growth, governance, and social development, multi-stakeholder cooperation remains essential to ensuring that digital transformation contributes to sustainable development, inclusion, and shared prosperity. As per the guidance given today, I would like to briefly highlight African priorities for the coming years, ongoing implementation effort, and areas where enhanced collaboration between the African Union and the IGF can further advance our shared digital governance objectives. A central point remains for us the continued strengthening of the African Internet Governance Forum as the Africa's premier multi-stakeholder platform for dialogue, cooperation, and action. The African Union Commission has supported the African IGF since its establishment in 2021 and remains firmly committed to its development as a platform through which African stakeholders exchange experiences, identify common priorities, and contribute constructively to the regional and global internet governance discussion. Through its support, the African IGF Secretariat, its role as a Secretariat and Co-Secretariat, the Commission has contributed to strengthening institutional coordination, ensuring continuity, and promoting stronger linkage between national, regional, continental, and global internet governance processes. These efforts reflect the African Union commitment to ensuring that the African IGF remains sustainable, inclusive, and impactful in advancing African digital governance priorities. The work is guided by the decisions and the recommendations of the African ministers, who are consistently encourage the acceleration of national internet governance forums, strengthen support for the national and regional IGF, and recognize the African IGF as an important continental platform for developing common African perspective on internet governance issues. Preparation of the African IGF 2026 in Ghana provides an important opportunity to deepen discussion on digital inclusion, cybersecurity, data governance, digital cooperation, emerging technologies, and responsible innovation while strengthening African contribution to the global digital governance process. Chair, Africa's digital transformation must be measured not only by the expansion of connectivity, but also by the extent to which people can meaningfully access, use, and benefit from the digital technologies. Bridging digital divides requires addressing persistent challenges related to affordability, infrastructure deployment, digital literacy, accessibility, local content development, and access to critical internet resources, including the domain names, radio frequency spectrum, satellite and orbital resources, and other foundational elements that support digital inclusion, innovation, and sustainable connectivity. Equally important is the continued development of African digital infrastructure ecosystem, including the establishment, expansion of national, regional, and continental internet exchange points. Such infrastructure contributes significantly to network resilience, efficient traffic exchange, reduced connectivity costs, and strong local digital economics. Achieving meaningful digital inclusion, therefore, requires moving beyond a narrow focus on coverage towards agenda centered on participation, empowerment, and opportunity. Communities must have affordable access, relevant digital skills, trusted digital service, and the capacity to create and benefit from value within the digital economy. In support of this objective, the African Union Commission continues to promote capacity development initiatives, including African Internet Governance School, which help strengthen policy expertise, leadership, and technical exchange across the continent. We also recognize the critical importance of youth engagement and the parliamentarian track in ensuring that Internet governance discussion translate into inclusive policies, effective regulatory framework, and practical implementation outcomes. Looking ahead, stronger collaboration between the African Union and the IGF can support implementation of the WSIS Plus 20 outcomes, the Global Digital Compact, and the African continental digital transformation priorities, including the digital transformation strategy for Africa, the continental AI framework, the cybersecurity strategy, few among others. Such cooperation should focus on advancing digital trust, responsible artificial intelligence, resilience, digital infrastructure, cybersecurity, capacity development, and meaningful connectivity. In this regard, the African Union has taken important steps to guide the governance and adoption of emerging technologies through the continental policy frameworks. These instruments provide a foundation for promoting trustworthy, inclusive, and development-oriented AI and data governance across the continent while supporting innovation and safeguarding fundamental rights. It is equally important that the African countries are not merely consumers of emerging technologies, but active contributors to their development, governance, and deployment. Strengthening local innovation ecosystem, investing in digital skill, supporting research and development, and enhancing institutional capacity will be essential. Africa also encourages stronger linkages between global internet governance discussion and implementation mechanism at a continental, regional, and national levels. The value of the IGF is greatest when policy discussions, recommendations, and good practice are translated into concrete actions that deliver measurable benefits for communities. In this regard, the African Union Assembly, during its 30th ordinary session, called for strengthened continental mechanism, including support for the establishment of the African Internet Development and Governance Observatory, as well as a mechanism to monitor and follow up recommendations emerging from regional and global Internet governance processes and provide periodic reporting to member states. Such mechanism can strengthen evidence-based policy making, enhance accountability, facilitate knowledge sharing, and ensure that the African governance discussion generate practical and measurable outcomes for citizens. As we prepare for African IGF 2026 in Ghana and the Global IGF 2026 in Kenya, we encourage the IGF community to continue prioritizing issues that directly affect people's daily lives, including closing digital access gap, strengthen digital skill, empowering youth, supporting policymakers, fostering innovative, and ensuring that emerging technologies contribute to sustainable development. Ultimately, the success of Internet governance should be measured by its impact on people and communities. Our collective objective must be strengthen the pathway from dialogue to action, from ideas to policies, from policies to implementation, and from implementation to measurable development outcomes. For Africa, the future of Internet governance must ensure that every citizen, regardless of geography, age, gender, or circumstances, can participate meaningfully in the digital economy and digital society. It must also ensure that Africa plays an active role in shaping the policies, standards, resources, innovations that will define the next phase of the global digital transformation. Madam Chair, the African Union Commission remains committed to work closely with Member States, the IGF Secretariat, the MAG, the UNDESA, and all stakeholders involved to build an Internet governance ecosystem that is inclusive, trusted, development-oriented, and responsive to the aspiration of the African citizens and communities. I thank you.
Thank you very much, African Union Commission, for the really good work that you're doing. We're looking forward to, of course, very close collaboration and cooperation. It is very important, for Africa's digital transformation priorities, and of course, the good work that's being done for Africa, IGF, and all the preparations. Now I will go to UNCTAD. I believe we have Angel Gonzalez Sanz speaking on behalf of UNCTAD. The floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Chair. UN Trade and Development welcomes this opportunity to engage with the IGF community at this particularly important moment for global digital governance. UNCTAD is deeply engaged in advancing digital cooperation for development, including as Secretariat of the UN Commission for Science and Technology for Development, which is the UN focal point for the follow-up to the World Summit on the Information Society, but also as an active contributor to the implementation of the Global Digital Compact. In this context, let me underline our strong support for the Internet Governance Forum as a cornerstone of the global digital governance ecosystem. The IGF reflects the multi-stakeholder model at the heart of both the WSIS framework and the Global Digital Compact, providing a unique and indispensable space for inclusive dialogue, trust building, and policy learning across all stakeholders. We also see clear and practical areas of collaboration between UNCTAD and the IGF ecosystem. First, UNCTAD has engaged in IGF discussions linked to the WSIS Plus 20 process, helping to bridge intergovernmental deliberations with multi-stakeholder perspectives on the future of digital cooperation. Second, through our work as chair of the United Nations Group on the Information Society, UNGIS, and as co-organizers of the World Summit on the Information Society Forum, we contribute to the strengthening connections between IGF discussions and WSIS action lines, ensuring that multi-stakeholder insights inform implementation efforts. Third, UNCTAD's work on data governance, including the CSTD Working Group on Data Governance at all levels, provides a concrete platform for multi-stakeholder dialogue that complements and can benefit from IGF exchanges on data governance and digital policy challenges. Finally, through initiatives such as research, capacity building, and dialogue on e-commerce and the digital economy, we bring development perspectives that can enrich IGF discussions, particularly on issues such as digital inclusion, digital trade, and measurement of the digital economy. At a time when we are moving from commitments to implementation following the WSIS Plus 20 review and the adoption of the GDC, the role of the IGF is more important than ever. It can help ensure that global digital governance processes remain inclusive, grounded in real-world experience, and responsive to the needs of developing countries. It can also help strengthen coherence across processes by connecting technical discussions with policy and development priorities. Looking ahead to IGF 2026, we will encourage continued efforts to reinforce its role as a platform for implementation-oriented dialogue with stronger linkages to the WSIS action lines, the work of the CSTD, and broader UN processes related to the Global Digital Compact. Such efforts should ensure that the perspectives of developing countries and underrepresented stakeholder groups are fully reflected and deepen engagement with communities working on digital trade, data, and development. UNCTAD stands ready to work closely with the IGF ecosystem to advance our shared objective, to ensure that digital transformation supports inclusive and sustainable development for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, UNCTAD. IGF ecosystem, of course, looks forward to collaborating very closely with UNCTAD with the very good work that you are doing, of course, being part of UNGIS and other areas too. Thank you very much. Now I will turn to Women in Internet Governance School of IG. I believe we have Baratang Mia speaking on behalf. Baratang, the floor is now yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We would like to congratulate the newly appointed MEC Chair and Kenya for hosting the IGF 2026. Women in Internet Governance through the School of Internet Governance is committed to advancing the participation, leadership, and influence of women in Internet governance and global digital policy spaces. I have to highlight that women empowerment and solving gender-based digital divide topics has never been and has always been a priority for the IGF. It was never a challenge. However, if you speak about cybersecurity, safety online, connectivity, and access, women and girls are still alarmingly vulnerable, marginalized group, and in so many parts of the world, mainly in the global south, women are still very unequal when it comes to the internet. Opportunities that are presented by AI today are not accessible to all and makes women more vulnerable to online gender-based violence, which makes us, those sitting in these rooms, very privileged compared to those women who unfortunately are not even able to connect to the internet or access the services that it provides. As women in internet governance, we are committed to the outcomes of our first annual Women in Internet Governance held in Addis Ababa in 2022. Over the coming years, our priority is capacity building, committed to strengthen women's participation in digital governance, support gender-responsive policymaking, and build stronger links between internet governance and multilateralism. We want women's voices not only present, but influencing and shaping decisions on digital inclusion, online safety, and emerging technologies, and creating pathways for women to influence decisions, especially on online safety and AI governance. We would continue to build a strong pool of women experts and leaders who can contribute to IGF programming and also lead in their own communities locally, regionally, and globally. Most of these women are able to reach schools and people on the ground. We see the IGF supporting capacity development through our fellowship, support our annual remote hub participation, and stronger follow-up on pathways for the participants. It can also help us convene diverse stakeholders and amplify women's voices across local, regional, and global levels. For us, the IGF is an important bridge between community experience and global policy spaces. In the context of WSIS Plus 20 follow-up, the Global Digital Compact and AI governance, the main opportunity is coordination. These processes are all connected, and the IGF can help ensure they do not happen in silos. For us, strengthening the relationship with women in multilateralism is key to achieving this vision. We see the IGF as a strong opportunity to collaborate on convening stakeholders to sharing policy ideas, building capacity of women leaders who move between technical, civil society, and diplomatic spaces. The IGF can be a bridge for turning advocacy into concrete dialogue and action. We would like to work with the IGF to bring women's rights, accountability, and inclusion into implementation discussions, especially through the WSIS Plus 20 around AI bias, digital exclusion, and online harm. Looking ahead to IGF 2026, we would like to encourage the IGF to focus on women's leadership in digital governance, the gendered impacts of AI, and online safety. In short, we want the IGF to be a practical bridge, linking women in internet governance with women in multilateralism as they are the decision makers, and turning global commitment into real implementation. Here we're talking about justice and human dignity for women and girls, especially in the AI times where they are more endangered than before. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Baratang Mia, for a very important intervention. Indeed, women and girls, all voices, underrepresented, unrepresented voices, we need all of this at the table at all levels, from planning to discussions of the agenda to leadership. So thank you very much for the important work and the important reminder that we need to continue. Now I will go to ICANN. I believe we have Yanis Clarkland speaking on behalf of ICANN. The floor is now yours, Yanis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, probably, in Nairobi. So ICANN is pleased to participate in these open consultations to the MAG. For 2 decades, ICANN has been an active contributor to the IGF and the national and regional IGF initiatives, participating in discussions, organizing sessions, supporting capacity development, and working with partners from all stakeholder groups to strengthen the forum and to demonstrate the strength of ICANN's multi-stakeholder model. We welcome the recognition of the IGF's value in the WSIS Plus 20 review process and the UNGA decision to establish it as a permanent forum. We would like to bring the MAG members' attention to some key areas of high importance, in our opinion, that can contribute to the success of the permanent IGF. Let me start by building a robust, relevant, and well-scoped program. We engage the MAG to consider, or we encourage the MAG to consider a more streamlined agenda with fewer topics, allowing for more in-depth analysis and discussions. From ICANN's perspective, delving deeper on technical topics such as security, stability, and resilience of the Internet's unique identifier system, especially in Africa, could be of great interest to the region. Secondly, encourage increase and engage participation. While the IGF has long benefited from strong engagement from civil society and the technical community, participation from governments and the private sector has been comparatively low. We encourage the MAG to continue consulting broadly across stakeholder groups to identify issues and themes that would benefit from the wider discussion at the IGF and encourage broader participation in those discussions, ensuring all stakeholder groups see clear value in the discussions, and that will strengthen active participation and reinforce the IGF's relevance. Next point, leverage a regional approach that generates strong and impactful outcomes. The IGF 26 in Kenya offers a unique opportunity to address priorities of particular importance for Africa, as the co-chair suggested, while generating outcomes with a global relevance. Kenya's leadership, including its role in co-facilitating the WSIS Plus 20 review process alongside with Albania, provides a strong foundation for the IGF that reflects regional priorities and delivers meaningful and lasting impact. And finally, strengthen the long-term stability of IGF ecosystem. ICANN's confidence in the IGF and our commitment to its long-term success is demonstrated by our one-time contribution of $1 million to the IGF Trust Fund. We hope that other stakeholders, organizations, governments, and businesses will also contribute to IGF Trust Fund and demonstrate their shared commitment to the IGF as the only multi-stakeholder forum to discuss the internet governance under the United Nations umbrella. We recognize that financial support alone, however, is not enough. ICANN remains committed to active engagement through our community, our expertise, and our continued participation in the work and the program of the forum. As preparations for the first annual permanent IGF continues, ICANN looks forward to working with all stakeholders to ensure that the IGF remains a sustainable, relevant, impactful, and truly multi-stakeholder platform that serves the global internet community for many years to come. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, ICANN. Thank you very much for your continued support, continued generous financial support, and of course, the reminder for us in this now permanent IGF to look to strong and impactful outcomes, especially prioritizing importance for the Africa region here. A good reminder for the MAG and the community, especially for this IGF cycle. So thank you again, ICANN. Now I will move on to Eurovisioni. I believe we have Giacomo Mazzone speaking on behalf. Giacomo, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Can you?
Yes, yes, we
Perfect.
can.
So thank you first to Kenya for hosting the IGF this year. Is very important and is the right place to be for the first IGF after the confirmation of the permanentization of the IGF. I'm speaking on behalf of Eurovisioni, but also on behalf of African Union Broadcasting. I'm member of the board of Eurodig and expert for the Italian IGF. we need to think differently from the past in terms of the IGF, what the IGF can do, because we need to become less shy and more proactive instead in shaping our role in the UN ecosystem of digital transition in the space that has been created through the WSS follow-up, the GDC implementation, the global dialogue for AI. We have to remember that IGF is the only truly multi-stakeholder place. So we can have a unique role to play, and we need to make it at our best. For instance, we need to improve the bridges and links with other processes. The idea of a liaisons officer that was floated by Wolfgang Kleinwachter, for instance, is very good, in my opinion, need to be explored. We need to bring the voice of a multi-stakeholder on topics that usually are discussed only by government, like as has been mentioned by others before me, the peace that is one of the priorities for the world today, the weaponization of artificial intelligence, and even disaster risk reduction. We need to incentive cooperation among NRIs, national, regional first, in order to streamline debates and processes in a bottom-up way, so that, for instance, we can use the expertise and the reflection that comes bottom-up from the national and regional IGF. As Eurodig, we are discussing to test something in this direction already this year. We also need to improve our cooperation with the media, as has been said by many. In Kenya, we have a splendid opportunity, that is the fact that we have a very strong national broadcaster, that is KBC, and I think that we need to establish links with them, and will be very happy to contribute in this sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eurovisioni. Thank you, Giacomo, for the important intervention here. I know that you've always been very supportive of all of the work that in the IGF ecosystem, so thank you for that. Now I will move on to IGF USA. I believe we have Ron Da Silva on site to speak on behalf.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. I am Ron Da Silva from the business and technical community, and am speaking on behalf of the IGF USA. I will speak to the question of significant developments in the coming year for the IGF USA and opportunities of collaboration with the global IGF. Following COVID, the IGF USA was a bit adrift, and thus it was not held for a couple of years, but now a multi-stakeholder steering committee has been formed to relaunch the IGF USA. Key to our relaunch this year is to address the sustainability of the IGF USA going forward, both structurally and administratively, but also with the establishment of the global IGF as a permanent activity of the UN, we seek to answer how the IGF USA will engage with the IGF and how our activities align with the global IGF objectives. This will be the focus of our relaunch planned in early September, a hybrid event, both online and in person, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. More details will follow. Outputs from our relaunch meeting should inform the IGF USA participation in dynamic coalitions or collaborative sessions, and any specific alignments more broadly with UN Sustainable Development Goals. We look forward to and welcome the participation by and support from the IGF community, and are enthusiastic about the revitalization of the IGF USA. Thank you, and good luck with the rest of your MAG meeting this week in Nairobi.
Thank you very much, IGF USA, and congratulations on your relaunch, part of the 180 plus national, regional, sub-regional, and youth initiatives. I think it's a really good thing that IGF USA can have that rejuvenation and relaunch. We have exhausted the list of the previously indicated speakers, and now we will go to the queue that I see in the room and online in Zoom. I believe the first person we have is Mokhtar Yadali. The floor is now yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I forgot to congratulate you for your appointment. When I was speaking first time, I was kind of hesitating a bit, but congratulating to you, and congratulating to all also MAG's members that has been elected. And I wanted to say that certainly we are all welcoming the linkage between the WCS 20+20 and the GTC. That is very actually welcomed and is very important. Because then we are moving from plans, vision to really start implementing things. And the IGF is actually the best platform where multi-stakeholders actually can see what is working, what is not working, and bring into the table on the table how things are working. But it is very important to be very cautious on duplications. We need to make sure that we are not duplicating programs here and there, and to ensure that we are also not redebating visions and programs and straightforward going to the implementation. I have a last message for African that is very important to me, is the fact that this is the first IGF that will take place after this linkage between the GCC and the WCS 20+20. Africa should come with a strong kind of vision, contribution, not just as a participant, but also an architecture of what we are planning to implement. Africa should come with a program where they show that they are a center of innovation. We can come with our model of AI governance for Africa. We can come with our cybersecurity capacity building program, linking cybersecurity, cyber diplomacy, cyber trust, and so all of that. It should not be just another participation where we just adopt a declaration and so on, but then come really with proposals that can be very meaningful to the continent itself and set the example for the future coming IGF in other regions. I stop here and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mokhtar. And of course, Mokhtar is no stranger to the IGF ecosystem, but he is also a first-year MAG member. So I guess reminder to all of the MAG members here, and this is a lot of work ahead of us, and we have a lot of will to do it with the collaboration of the entire community. Just a reminder for the speakers who have their hands up, if you identify yourself and also the affiliation. Now I'll go over to Amrita Chaudhary. Amrita, the floor is now yours.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And I speak on behalf of the IGF Support Association. Our mission at IGFSA has always been to strengthen and channel and support the IGF and its ecosystem of national, regional, and youth initiatives, because we believe that the IGF remains the only truly multi-stakeholder bottom-up process that enables the global community to deliberate not only on global challenges, but also on national and regional priorities. And with the IGF's permanent mandate now affirmed and the WCS +20 resolution recognizing the strength of this ecosystem, the work of the IGF and its ecosystem carries even greater weight. For that, there is definitely a need to strengthen the IGF with necessary resources and manpower, strengthen the IGF so that the IGF 2026 is more strategic. However, IGFSA also wishes to emphasize that support is not just needed for the IGF Secretariat, but also for the broader IGF ecosystem, in particularly for more than 160 plus national, regional, and youth IGFs. Since its establishment, IGFSA has played a critical role in mobilizing resources for supporting these NRIs, enabling participation from diverse and unrepresented communities. And through its efforts, the IGFSA has helped ensure that the IGF ecosystem remains inclusive, particularly by supporting NRIs from developing countries and regions, and also supporting NRIs from countries in the global north who are not able to benefit from funding earmarked for developing countries. Since IGFSA is independent, community-driven organization, it needs continued support. And we believe for the IGF to truly thrive and achieve its mission, we need to ensure that every NRI, especially the smaller ones in Global South, is sustained and supported. IGFSA therefore calls on all stakeholders across the technical community, private sectors, civil society, and governments to continue supporting our work. Collective efforts through memberships, partnerships, or financial contributions are essential to sustain the broader IGF ecosystem. Lastly, we look forward to the deliberations for the next 3 days to shape IGF 2026 and the intersessional activities of this year, and we remain committed to supporting the IGF. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, IGF Support Association. Thank you for the reminder that for the many national, regional, sub-regional, and youth initiatives, this is still a funding gap. And I know that there's good work done by IGF Support Association, done by ISOC Foundation, done by ICANN and others, but of course we still need a lot of help to ensure that the NRI network remains robust, remains sustainable, remains able to have its annual meetings. Now I will go to the next person on the queue. I'm not sure, oh, of course, in the room. If you can just state your name and also who you're speaking on behalf of, please go ahead.
To all protocols observed, first of all, good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Blessed Barak Juma. I'm 15 years old. I come from Kenya, and I was told to say who I'm speaking on behalf of. I'm not speaking on behalf of any organization, but I'm speaking on behalf of all the children. So my question is, actually it's not a question, maybe I can say it's a request. The IGF, there is actually something that is actually making me happy. I can see on the screens, we are taking the children's rights to the internet or online, digital. So like when you are planning the IGF, we as the children are requesting for a chance to be able to participate. Child participation in also planning this meeting such as IGF or the committee, the organizers, if you can include children, creating a children planning committee so that we can also be able to try and bring up the topics that we children know that other children also want to be discussed. So if you're given a chance to have a children's planning committee, we would really appreciate, because we know what we are going through and what other children are going through. So not only us, but also the children in different other countries, because as I came in, I heard Mr. Ambassador saying, this is not for Kenya, this is for Africa. Yeah, so also those other children in different African countries, they should be given accreditations to be able to attend such events and speak on behalf of different countries, different children in their different countries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Gareth Sunday. I'm from Total News. So just to mention, we often say young people are the future of the digital world, and they are the most active users. So as IGF, what concrete power are we willing to give them today in shaping the internet governance, just beyond consultation to actual decision making, just to touch on what he has already said. So I think the IGF, as we continuously deliberate on the few days that we are here, I think we can work on that to actually make the children be included.
Thank you very much, Blessed Barak, and thank you also for the response and I guess the acknowledgement. And I'm sure from our co-chairs this morning, we heard, for the local host, there's been a lot of engagement from the youth, and of course now engagement from the children as well. I think it's extremely important to have all of these voices. There's also opportunities, I think IGF Secretariat will be able to share how all of this can also, how you can participate in all of the planning and all of that. So I think very good intervention from you, and we're very lucky to have you here. The fact that you're here and registered and being part of this open consultation is already that first step of being engaged. So thank you very much for for speaking up here. Thank you very much in advance for all the work you're going to put into helping us make this IGF very important for the children in Kenya, in Africa, and of course, the global community as well. I will go back to the queue right now. I see that there is a person, Wendy has her name up. Okay, so Wendy, please. Oh, Wendy, yes.
Good afternoon. I'm pretty sure you all can see me, right? I'm Wendy Prakriti. I'm from Total News. I'm here presenting the children. I would like to support on the Children Planning Committee to ensure meaningful participation for all children across the whole country and credibility for the children. Excuse me. And also, I would also like us to also support civic education among the children, not only the adults, so that we know what's happening in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Okay, I will first go to Ivy, and then I will go to Wisdom. So in the room as well, we have Ivy Joan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for this opportunity to give my comment and also ask a question. So I am a representative of Total News, representing the children. I am also a secondary school student, and I'm 17 years old. So Baratang Mia talked about accessibility of internet to the people, but we should also not forget that affordability can also fall under that. So my question is, how can the IGF come in to ensure that access, like accessibility of the internet, is both accessible to the people, to the children, to everyone? Because we also know that internet is no longer a luxury, it's something essential for education, innovation, and most of us, the young people. So how can the IGF come in to ensure that internet is accessible and affordable? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Ivy, for a very important question. I think for the IGF, it is the place that it's a platform to gather all of the good work, the policies that are happening in many different countries, of course, across the Africa region, of course, specifically also in Kenya as well, where the people, the decision makers, will be able to share all of the initiatives that are being put out in the community that will allow for affordable, meaningful connectivity. Because as you said, you know, the internet is not a luxury anymore. It's essential for daily life around the globe. So I hope that you will also continue to help us shape this program and to be able to see these very important issues being discussed from the local level to the regional level to, of course, at the global IGF in December. I will now move on to Wisdom Donkur. Wisdom, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much. Can you please hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mine is more or less like a proposal. The permanent renewal of the IGF mandate is a historic opportunity to make the IGF more impactful, citizen-centric, and development-oriented, while the IGF has succeeded as a global dialogue platform. We now need to ensure that our discussions translate into real outcomes for people and communities. My key proposal is to strengthen the role of national and regional initiative of NRIs because they are the grassroots foundation of the IGF ecosystem. NRIs understand local realities, bring in stakeholders who may otherwise be excluded, and provide a bridge between global discussions and national implementation. To achieve this, I propose that the global IGF institutionalize 5 structured NRIs regional main sessions representing Africa, Europe, Asia Pacific, Latin America and the Caribbean, and the North America. These sessions, I think, will not replace existing regional IGF. Rather, they, they may serve as platform to consolidate and elevate regional priorities and policy messages into the global policy space. In addition to this, I also think the NRI's global integration sessions. I propose one NRI's global integration session to bring together outcomes from all regions, identify outcomes, identify common challenges and opportunities, and present consolidated recommendation grounded in regional realities. This approach, I think, is a clear policy pathway that we can all reflect and think about from the national IGS into the regional IGS, and then from the regional into the global IGS, and then the global policy processes back to national and then regional implementation. I believe such a model, I think, will strengthen policy coherence, improve implementation, enhance inclusiveness, and ensure that the IGF delivers measurable development outcome in areas such as education, health, agriculture, etc. And finally, as we enter this new chapter of the IGF, I think our focus should not only be on holding discussions, but on demonstrating real impact, strengthening and integrating NRIs into the global architecture is one of the most effective way to achieve that. I think we can all attest to that. When we go into the global IGF, we don't have sessions that directly talks about the regional outcomes that reflects into the outcomes of the global IGF processes. So we need to reflect on this and see how, if possible, if not this year, maybe the subsequent year, so that we have that regional session, so that, for example, Africa, we can bring the whole of Africa into that session and then invite others. We discuss our issues so that those issues reflect into the global outcome. So often we realize that we come as individuals, and then whatever thing that we discuss disappears. Actually, I mean, don't see it, or it doesn't reflect back into what happens on the ground. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Wisdom, for a very thoughtful proposal there. I think we all know that you've done very good work, especially with the national, regional, sub-regional youth initiatives. I'm sure we'll hear the updates also from the Secretariat on what the NRI network has been working on as well, and we'll hear more about that in the upcoming days. I see there's 2 more hands. I'm just making an announcement here. We will be cutting the queue off unless people have a very burning desire to put their hand up. I will now go to Serene Asefa. Serene, the floor is now yours.
Okay, I won't take much time. I just want to go back to the 2 young children who raised. How do we engage the young children in IGF ecosystem? I think during my intervention on behalf of the African IGF Secretariat, I mentioned that this year, the African IGF will introduce children IGF, age group between 8 to 17. Hearing from the ground for children who want to be engaged, I think it's very encouraging. So for inception, we will have a 1-day track for school kids around Accra, but we are also testing what do you call a remote village for children. So for Kenyan counterpart who want to organize the children IGF, please contact the Secretariat so we can be able to make it happen. And on my personal request is to make sure that young professional women are engaged in IGF forums. If the host country can consider have a childcare service for women who have child and who want to be part of the forum, but they cannot let the young kids behind. So that's the only 2 ones. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Serene. Thank you also for speaking on behalf of the the African IGF Secretariat. So we'll make sure we get you all connected so you can, participate even further on in the planning and development of that particular event as well. I see there is one more hand after Yao, so I will probably cut it after Sebastian. So Yao, please, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Chair. I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good morning, Kenya. Good afternoon. Sorry, mine is more of a contribution. I'm Yao Sosu from Benin and founding member of the Benin Youth IGF. I just wanted to intervene regarding the question with our young colleagues in the room regarding the youth children participation to highlight that the dynamic coalitions is there, and then we have different dynamic coalitions. And dynamic coalitions also plus the NRI are part of the, I would say, core supporting system and ecosystem for the global IGF. So there's a dynamic coalition that's already put the link in the chat. And the dynamic coalition on data-driven technology also has the next gen caucus, which I lead currently, and which also welcome you to join. And I also wanted to highlight the teen IGF, youth children IGF that the African IGF is also going to launch soon, but Sorin already did that. So I just wanted to highlight those message which I put in the chat directly. Thank you very much, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Yao. Thank you for the warm welcome to our young colleagues as well in the room. I believe we have 2 more hands. I will be very fair here. 30 seconds each for the remaining hands, and we will end on time. So I'm cutting the queue now off after Love Day. 30 seconds, please. Sebastian, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I would like to congratulate you for your appointment as chair and the other member of the MAG. I am Sébastien Bachelet from Internet Society France and one of the organizers with AFNIC.fr, organizing the French IGF. I wanted just to come back to a few things. The first one is that it's very important to support local and regional IGF in all around the world, and it's a part of the global IGF organization. And the second point is that we need also to discuss undiscussed topic. You already have that in mind because other people have said that. Therefore, thank you very much for having me, and have a good meeting.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. Now we will go to Osita.
Yeah, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And all protocol duly observed. Congratulations for your new appointment. My name is Osta Kensley, and I am joining from University of Applied Science in Bonn-Reisig, Germany, but I am from Nigeria. So I am a cybersecurity specialist from the humanitarian sector, and I wanted to mention key issue regarding data protection of beneficiaries with regards to social protection and humanitarian sector, especially where data handling data is very critical before one can have access to benefits in social protection system. So just to cut it short, I would appreciate if we can look into that because many organizations, especially in developing countries, forming organization is very easy in developing countries, and there are loose regulations as to regard data privacy and data protection of the beneficiaries in such settings. So thank you for this opportunity, and we look forward to further discussions.
Thank you very much, Osita, for your very important intervention. And we have the last word for Love Day. Please go ahead.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon. I'm Johnny from Nigeria, and I'm so much proud to be part of this session today. And warm congratulations to you, Chair, for being appointed as the Chair for the NIGF, for the IGF Global. So at this moment, I want to speak on submission to enhancing youth IGF coordination globally, starting from the national youth IGF down to the regional youth IGF for enhanced structure for the youth IGF. Because when you look at the youth IGF, most of the digital governance conversations, the youth still lacks representation due to most of the youths who lead one initiative or the other are probably doing such engagement on voluntary reasons, that's on voluntary positions, and not having a formalized structure for their continuous engagement has been a very big problem in going forward. Like we don't have, most of us do not have a strong organizational support to be part of this initiative. So doing this is just out of will, out of voluntary engagement. Then other stakeholders oftentimes has a lot of organizational support to be part of this initiative. So having the youth left being at the disadvantaged positions and having a more structured youth organization that will enable more impact and benefit for youth participation on global digital governance is very, very vital. I think the IGF should try to consider to enhance the formalization and structure and better structure of the youth IGF down from the national level down to the global youth IGF. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lade. I know, thank you also for all of your work that you've also done with the Youth Network, the youth coordinators. I believe there is a focal point in the IGF Secretariat, Herman, who will also listen to regarding any updates from that particular youth network. I think it's really important for us to consider, as MAG and also community, how we institutionalize all the structural improvements, including youth voices at every single level. So thank you again, Loveday, for bringing this important aspect. All right. So now we have exhausted the queue, and we are 5 minutes over, but I will remind us all to come back promptly at 2 o'clock. We will restart the agenda on a very important theme. It will be the IGF 2026 overarching theme. So please be ready to come back at 2 in conference room 10 for those who are with us here in Nairobi. And I think if IGF Secretariat, you have any other housekeeping things to announce? If not, we will be breaking for lunch. So we're not coming back to this room. We're going to conference room 10 after lunch. We will be explaining right now.
So from the main entrance with the flags, you make a left and keep walking. There's the conference building there, and it houses all the numbered conference rooms.
So where we're going to have lunch, right? We'll be there. You'll see us.
Thank you very much. And for those online, we will be restarting in 84 minutes promptly. Thank you very much.